All right, without further ado, and I think we've got caught up a little bit on the introductions. If somebody comes in or has not been recognized, David, good to see you. If you've not been recognized, we don't want anybody to feel left out. We're kind of a family here, and so we appreciate that. German, good morning. Jay as well. Actually, I was talking about Jay this morning on my way to. Y'all get in my days. You're there. Stefan, good to see you. All right. Let's talk about what we do on the webinar. We're going to cover YOUZIGN, GIFZIGN, LOGOZIGN, MOCZIGN. We'll probably spend more time today talking about YOUZIGN and LOGOZIGN today, but we try to cover all of those bases. I can't answer support questions. They have to go to support. And one of the reasons why we don't have Rose on sometimes is because she's handling things in support. So Rose is doing a fantastic job. We miss having her. And so the good thing is that some of you have stepped in and shared some things that we need to have shared once in a while. And that will be down there at the very end of this list. And that is that's the link that we provide answering the typical questions that are asked on Friday. So if somebody would share that, I would appreciate it. And y'all are good about that. Your questions are very important. They're very important, but they have to relate to the day's topic. Sometimes it takes a little preparation in order to include them in the day's topic. And we want to make sure that we get your questions answered, but they may have to wait a week. And so just be aware of that. All right. The next thing has to do with be kind to each other, be good to all, so we can have an amazing experience. And I usually don't talk about partners' offers. So if somebody has gotten an email about something that's going on, you'll have to address that to the people where it came from, not from me. Okay. All right. Having said all of that, let's get started. All right. You ready? Everybody ready to get started this morning? I have this amazing little quote here. I like this. It's the real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in seeing them with new eyes. And I really like that. I really, really like that. What I try to do in this webinar is I try to give you a new perspective on things, try to give you a fresh perspective to see it from a different angle. I just really, really like this. Discovery isn't trying to find something new all of the time. It's instead seeing the same old things with new eyes. And I just love that quote. That's an amazing quote. And I wanted to give that to you this morning. Take that with you as you go. I may actually even put it in the group so that you can, don't take the mushrooms too far. It was just, ordinary stuff is all I was trying to do. Okay. So just take that for what it's worth. I may even drop that in the group just so y'all can get a chance to enjoy that. All right. Yeah. Sometimes new glasses makes all the difference in the world. Okay. The next thing that I want to share with you here, and this has become an ongoing, and I really hope Juliet's on with us today. I'd like to talk about this. Yes, there's a YOUZIGNERS Facebook group, Jan. If you've not seen that before, somebody will share a link to that so you can be sure and get included in that group, okay? This has been an ongoing issue with Jan, and we're going to talk about this just a little bit today. I want to help settle this, and I think most of you probably know kind of where I'm going to go, and I'm going to prove that in just a minute. Okay, I'm going to actually prove it right now. Let me just grab this and move this up here so you can see this. Eric asked all these questions right here, and I think that these are really good questions. They help to answer this what's going on here. We want to make sure that these are awesome questions, and they're an expansion of this list of questions I gave you the other day. He just took that one step further. Excuse me. He just took that one step further, and I think it was important that we do that because it's hard to say, is this image going to work if you don't know what it's going to work for? And the first thing that I see when I look at this is that she's trying to make the image do all the heavy lifting. And heavy lifting is a common phrase that I use a lot to talk about a design or about an image that somebody's trying to create. The image itself should only be the attention grabber. And there's an awful lot of activity going on here. So we may take this apart just a little bit later on, okay? So just be aware of that. Eric, great questions. I really like the questions. They're even an expansion on my basic questions. These are basic questions I use all the time. You're going to see something in the next slide that will help you to understand that. This is actually me in my office, and these are the places where I have those things stuck all over the place. Those kinds of questions that I ask all the time. Okay, but this is what I wanted to say about Kim. Kim last week asked about an undo button. I thought about that all weekend long. I couldn't think of anything else but that undo button. And so I frequently will do a live feed from my office. And this was a live feed that I did on Tuesday in which I talked about living life without an undo button and giving yourself permission to make mistakes and giving yourself permission to make mistakes in such a manner that they cost you something and you learn something from it. And so, Kim, I just to your credit, thank you so much for doing that last week, because I really thought that was important. Okay. Life doesn't have an undo button. And we get so used to being able to erase a mistake that it makes our lives challenging to live. And so I did that very brief live feed from my office that day on living life without an undo button, because it's okay to make mistakes. And even if the mistake cost me something, then I'll learn something. If there's no cost, there's no change. And one of the great things about life without an undo button is life doesn't have an undo button. You will pay for mistakes, but that's good because that's what we learn from. Okay. Spent a lot of years as a teacher, so I can tell you what causes people to learn. The next thing that I want to talk about, this is an example, and this is a great example. This is a great example. I believe Stephen put this in there, and this is a great example of an image that has to do all the work. This image is a flyer, and a flyer has to do all the heavy lifting. All of the information has to be in the flyer because it's the only thing a person has. When a person leaves with a flyer in their hand, they leave with everything that they have. And so it has to do all the work. The other thing, Brad, is I love the colors in this. This is a great use of colors. And we'll talk about colors in just a little bit, but this is a really, really dynamic use of colors. And I thought it was great. Okay. And actually it's more than a great use of colors. It's one of the best examples I've seen of a really good color combination. The colors work well together, and I'm going to show you why in just a minute. Okay. I love this image, and I've saved it because I really want to be able to do something with it at some point in the future. So thank you, Pete, for sharing that with the group. Brad's come up with some really, really interesting ways to use LOGOZIGN. And so I'm going to share with you some additional interesting ways to use LOGOZIGN this morning. And so Brad's always sharing with us some interesting shapes that he finds in LOGOZIGN. So thank you for that, Brad. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit, okay? I think that there's some really creative things you can do with LOGOZIGN. We let the word logo get in our way. And so I'm going to talk about how to keep logo from getting in your way and using it to do some creative things like what you see Brad having done right here. All right. The next thing is I want to talk briefly about using LOGOZIGN to create icons. All right. So I'm going to call today LOGOZIGN is going to be my icon creator. Okay. Because when I'm creating a website, I can put an icon up here, but being able to brand that icon just a little bit really kind of helps tie all of these pieces together. Does that make sense? I could have just used this icon in each one of these cases, but I really like the idea of putting just a little bit, just a little bit. It's kind of subtle branding that goes with it. And I think it kind of pulls all those pieces together. Obviously, you know, Eric said is the name of the site. So I think it pulls those pieces together. And I really like using LOGOZIGN for that purpose. But I think this is another way. Brad's got some really interesting ways over here. This is another way to use LOGOZIGN to accomplish something that perhaps, I mean, I was going to use an icon there anyhow. Well, why not make the icon have a little branding with it? Okay. And I think it makes a better looking icon. How many of you have done that before? These are really pretty cool buttons right here to be used on an iPhone app or a mobile device or that kind of thing. How many of you are using LOGOZIGN for that type of a purpose? Let me know in the chat if you're using LOGOZIGN for that type of purpose. Brad, we know you're using it in all kinds of ways. Okay, well, it looks like we may have had some converts here between Brad and I using them for different things. I just want you to see that. Sometimes we look at, remember, what was the comment that we started out with right here? Not seeking new landscapes. It keeps you from chasing after everything that comes along, and instead starting to look at them with new eyes. And that was my goal right here. Let's look at a different way, maybe a different way for us to be able to take in a way to do this so that we might maximize the opportunity that we have. Now, obviously, we're pulling the podcast. The podcast goes with the headphones, and the video training goes with the video link and the video icon, and the ebooks goes with the Kindle reader. But I'm not expecting the image to do all the work by itself. Does that make sense? I want to go back and talk about Templateology for a while. Okay. I just think that last week I was going over the video and I went, oh, now I realize what was going on here. And so it's been a while since I talked about this. So we're going to do that today. We're going to go through and take a look at at a couple of templates. And I have a question for you based upon, this is my template dashboard. And something popped out at me as I did this. Does anybody want to guess what it is that's popping out at me? These are all these first 8 that are here. All of these first 8 are all Pinterest pins. So I have a question for you this morning. Are you currently doing anything on Pinterest to promote your business? Are you currently doing anything? Tell me yes or no. Are you currently doing anything to on I see 1 or 2 yeses. I see 2 yeses, 3 yeses so far. 4. Kim just said pins have serious staying power, and the answer to that, yes, they do. I have been amazed. Things that I pinned 3 years ago were repinned this week. I'm just shocked that's still going on. I can't do that with anything else. There's nothing that I can do is going to give me that kind of staying power. So I forget about this. I forget about the platform Pinterest. I just forget about it. We're here on this webinar today to talk about visuals. Pinterest is a visual. It is a visual traffic driver. And because it's a visual traffic driver and we're in a visual business, why do we forget about the platform? I went back and looked at how much of my traffic's coming from Pinterest. More than half the traffic coming to my site's coming from Pinterest. I just think that we don't want to miss this. And so, yeah, I'm in exactly the same boat, Olga. I knew that I should be doing this, and I just forgot. And if y'all go back and listen to the webinar from probably a year ago or so, you'll hear me say exactly the same thing. I don't know why I forget this platform, because this is an amazing platform, and we have a great tool to do that with. And so and I told you, you'll learn something every time you open up the templates. And that's why I call it Templateology. This slapped me in the face with a reminder you need to be doing things on Pinterest. And what an important reminder that is. Okay, so it looks like all of us could really benefit from focusing some attention on Pinterest in such a way that might help us. And interestingly enough, do you know, I don't have a lot. I got a couple of hundred pins on Pinterest, and I have a few of them that have been repinned a few hundred times. But do you know what category they all fit in and where the traffic's coming to my website from? Pins that look like that. Just pins that look like that. Simple quotes, things that people can remember, something that inspires them for the day. Those are things that have been very beneficial to me to drive traffic to my sites. And so I just wanted to use Templateology today. Now we're going to go back and take a look at some templates, and we're going to try to help with some other things by using some of the templates that we have. But I wanted to use this as a reminder. One of the things that we learn every time we go to the template platform is we're going to learn something. And what I learned here was don't forget about Pinterest, because it's a powerful platform. It is great for being able to capture attention, and you get lots and lots and lots of traffic there. So just a reminder that this is a powerful tool, and we don't want to forget about it. The next thing, speaking of powerful tools, is color. And so last week, Leah had shared, or 2 weeks ago, Leah had shared with us this link right here to this amazing color calculator. And so if you go back up and take a look at those colors, and you look at this image that was provided here by Stephen, you can see how these colors work together. All right. Pretty cool, actually. And then you're going to see something here because when you figure out what, and I'm not going to tell you today, but I want you to figure out why these colors work so good, okay? The link for that is right here, Olga. I'm going to give you another link right now. This is a link to, this is really a cool thing. This is a color psychology or a color emotion guide. Color, it incites some, or it triggers some emotions. And so I wanted to share this with you. The logo company here has a really, really cool infographics on color emotion. And so take note of that. I'm going to show you 2 more things from that website, or from that link that's right there. But that color that was used on this image right here, these colors right here fit in this area right here, right? They're all in this area right here. And so they're friendly, they're cheerful, they're confident. That's the reason why it works. That's the reason why it works. Because this advertisement, this piece right here, is about we have the best offer for your scenic living. Can you see why this would be the best offer? Because it's done with friendly, confident, and cheerful kinds of colors. So when you all saw that color a while ago, everybody was triggered by the color. Everyone was. They all loved the color. And the color came so beautifully out of the image that was at the top. And just a masterful job of that. And so I wanted to point out to you why that works so well, because it really does. All right. The next thing is, and this is really interesting, and this is a highly controversial topic, but I'm going to share it with you anyhow. And this is, again, on color psychology. What are men and women's favorite colors, and what are their least favorite colors? Interestingly enough, when you look at the least favorite colors right here and right here are the colors that we saw right here. Okay. But while it wouldn't be the choice, it doesn't mean that they were repelled by the ad. In fact, every one of you, male or female, were all in awe of the use of the color on that flyer, correct? So just keep that in mind as you think about the value of colors and what you're going to do with the colors, okay? Interestingly enough, blue is still the most favorite color. Blue is still the most favorite color of all. And it's a great complementary color. It's a great background color. It works really well for accomplishing its purpose. And you go back over here to the psychology. What does blue do? It demonstrates trust, dependability, and strength. I don't find it surprising that it's the favorite in both categories. Correct? And all of these are in the same page. If you go to that link and you scroll down the page, you'll see it there. So again, I want to remind you, keep it simple. Keep it as simple as possible, because simple is the thing that makes awesome really work for you. And but I want to, and then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the templates, okay? And but I want you to keep it simple. In this particular case, you want to let the text and the call to action down here do much of the heavy lifting. I can't, but if somebody else can capture that link, I would appreciate it. I don't know if I can capture that link or not. I don't know if this will work. Let me see if this will work. Oh, there, people got it. Thank you so much, folks. I appreciate it. Yeah, it gets a little awkward for me to try to share that while we're doing this, and so I unless I have them preloaded into the webinar, it's just hard for me to do. Okay, all right. Having said all of that, we're going to now do two things. I'm going to give you a few tips that might be helpful to you, and we're going to take a look at any questions that you might have. Okay, good. Now let's take a look at the dashboard for just a moment. We're going to go look at some design in a minute, but I want to look at the dashboard for just a minute. One of the things that I do, and I do this frequently when I open up the template dashboard, is I just scroll down through here. First of all, to take a look at what's new, to take a look at anything that might catch my attention that I really like, okay, and see what I might learn in the process of this. Because I'm trying to figure out how to help Juliet with the veterans image that she's working on. And let me explain something to you. I take this one very, very seriously. I raised 9 kids, and we had a 10th one that hung around the house a lot. And he probably ate more meals at my house during high school than anywhere else. And so he just hung out for a long time. Of those 10. So we always include Robin in the 10. Of those 10, 8 of them are veterans. Unfortunately, Rob's not with us anymore because he struggled with PTSD and came home and took his life. And so this is a topic that's very near and dear to my heart, and I really want to be able to help. Fortunately, none of my kids are homeless, and they're all doing very, very well. So I don't take that the wrong way. But I do see this as being a huge need, and I really want to be able to help. So the first thing I'm going to do, the very first thing I'm going to do, is I'm going to scroll down through here and see how I might be inspired by the template to do something that makes sense. Okay. And I see a couple of things that I really kind of like. All right. And I might be able to use that might be beneficial in the process. And I see something right here, and I'm going to pop this out so you can see it. I don't know if you can see that or not, but I see something right here that's kind of cool. All right. What you have over here, you have an image that's inside of a cutout. Now we have, now if this is a flyer, then the flyer is going to do what the flyer has to do, and that's kind of some of the heavy lifting. The biggest issue that I see here is this is getting really crowded. Okay. That's the biggest issue that I see, is that it is a bit crowded. And because it's a bit crowded, we got to do something to give it some space. We got to do something to air it out. And so when I'm looking at this over here, I see something that really works for me. Could I take a silhouette of a house? Okay. Could I take a silhouette of a house? And could I take a homeless veteran picture like this and put it inside the silhouette of the house and have this same design right here? Let me actually open this up and we'll play with this. And it's going to take a little bit of work to do that. But could I create this? Because could I create this? See this image right here. Do you see what that is? You could take the sides of a house and do that with it. I could take that and put this homeless picture and put this homeless person picture right here inside the silhouette. All right. I could put that homeless person's picture inside the silhouette, and then instead of in pink, I wouldn't use pink, obviously, but to put something down the side here that gave specific instruction as to what to do, and some of the instruction that's right here could go over here, and it would allow it to breathe. Does that make sense? I want to give this so that it's readable. If you can't read it, what happens is you lose the battle for attention. And this topic is so important and it's so personal to me that I want to give it the attention that it needs. And I could take the lower half of it. I think this is supposed to be a flyer. I could take the lower half of this and I could do what I've just described right here. I could make this the lower half of that image with a house here and put a homeless person inside of it. The homeless person in the house accomplishes the message. Does that make sense? So I could take that, make that the bottom half of this, the top half of this, and I may slide it up and make it the middle third or the middle half. And across the bottom of this, put the silhouette of these soldiers across the bottom half of that. And make that a little more subtle. I get it. Okay. They're important. They're obviously very important to me, but I want to make sure the problem is I'm losing my call to action in this flyer. All right. And I don't want to lose the call to action in the flyer. I want to make the call to action the most important thing. It's not these pictures down here. I get it. Man, many of my buddies are Vietnam vets. I get it. But the problem is exactly as Olga said, it's a bit distracting. And I don't want to distract from the message. I want to attract to the message. Okay. Let's take a look at the next one and see what we can do with this. Now, I don't know again, I'm not sure exactly what this is, but we've got a lot of busyness on this image, and I want to eliminate that. This is another example of busyness here. And then go back and think about the psychology of the color. What are we going to trigger by doing this? I think you're right. I'm not sure exactly where your eye is supposed to go. I'm lost in the middle of this right here. It took me a while to figure out that was saying that this in the middle right here, I got lost in that. I was trying to figure out what that was. And so I'm focusing my attention on trying to figure out what that says, Fort Hope. I finally got it, but in the process of getting it, I lost the message, and I don't want to lose the message. This down here is totally unreadable. I can't do anything with this. This doesn't give me any direction right here. And so, like I said, I'm very hesitant to do this because I'm not trying to be critical to Juliet's focus. This is something that's really special to me. It means something to me, and so I really want to try to help with this if I can. So again, I think that this is all distracting. I want that to be easy to read, easy to see, very simple. Not too complex. And I realize that we're testing different looks here. The problem is this becomes the focal point, and this should not be the focal point. Sometimes, Gray, sometimes you have to use a border to the text. Sometimes you have to do that to make it make sense. This design right here, I put a really light border to the text here so you can see that, because it made a little bit more sense. I could have made this white, but the black made it stand out from the background, and I wanted to keep the orange that was there. So, but again, I think that there's just, I don't want, now this is a little bit better, but what happens down here is I lose it again. This is a little better. Yeah, I'm really careful. I try not to ever use more than 3 fonts or 3 colors, because more than that gets way busy. Stephen, I tend to agree that those colors don't give me what I'm looking for with 8 kids in the military. It just doesn't give me what I'm looking for. I don't expect this. This is not about the military when I look at that. This, however, is. And this works a little bit better than the other images do. And I agree with what Gene's saying here. This one is appealing. And like I said, with the background that I have, this does have more appeal to me. But I would agree, the block lettering is pretty cool, but this became a whole sentence out of block lettering, and it became a little bit too much. Again, this doesn't work. This is too much right here. This doesn't work. If you're going to do the shadow, you need to either do one spot so that it works, and that's it. The shadow here is horribly distracting. These are things that I find terribly distracting. And I don't know what to do with this. Those are things you got to be really, really careful about. Okay. And yes, I tend to agree with you, Jane. I find it unreadable because we have 1, 2, 3, 4 different types of fonts. That's too many. Maybe 5 different types of fonts, which is too many. And we have too many different colors. And yeah, it just, all of that becomes a little bit confusing. And again, understand, the reason why I decided to do this, I told my wife this morning, so I've never been more uncomfortable trying to make some presentation about something, because this is too near and dear to my heart. And simple is always the best thing to do. Now, if this is a flyer, then you kind of need to have some information there, but you need to make the information so easy to get to. You know, I see Fort Hope and 50155. I have to work to read text too. I mean, I really have to work to do that. And I don't want to have to work to do it. Yeah, this, Olga, thank you. This may be one of the most uncomfortable topics I've ever talked about, because it is so close to me. I mean, I have 3 kids that are approaching 20 years in the military right now. The good thing is that they all have expectations of what to do next. The bad thing is that we've already lost one of them. I don't know if she is or not, and I apologize for talking about this while she's not here. Okay, I'm not trying to but I think this is an important topic, and I think it's a good way for us to be able to evaluate this and to try to help her to get done what she wants to do, and that is to raise money to help end this. And see, I'm just now getting the point that this is a tiny home village for the homeless veterans. I'm just now getting that. Yeah, that's a good question, Jane. We've talked about that leading up to this, so I don't know if you were here or not. We talked. There's four elements in a design. All right, this violates all of those 4 elements, but there's 4 elements in the design. There's a background. That would be really good. Leah, thank you for bringing that up. I know that most of us, I mean, the help that's been provided to her in the group has been good, but I think that's a great idea. Thank you, Leah. I commend you for that. That was great. So let's talk about those 4 things, all right? Let's talk about those 4 things. The 4 things are, and you look over here, you have, obviously this is about people getting engaged, okay? And so it has a different focus here, but it still has the same elements. Okay, this is the background. It has a background. Every single product or every single image has these 4 elements, and these are the 4 elements that make design work. All right, this one has a background. It has a background. The background in this case happens to be this color. And it's solid. It has a product. What's the product? The product is the relationship, right? It has a logo. This is actually a logo, all right? Whether this is a logo for a business or not, I have no idea. Again, remember, these are templates, but this is the logo. This is the call to action. Those are the 4 elements of every single design. It has a background. It has a product. In this case, this is the product. It has a logo. In this case, this is the logo. And it has a call to action or a tagline / call to action. And that's exactly what you have. Okay. Those are the elements that go into a great design. Over here, we have a lot of stuff that contributes to this becoming busy. And you could take this and make it work. You can take this and make it work. But if this is intended to be a flyer, that's one thing. If it's intended to be, and this, by the way, this doesn't work as a flyer. The color's conflicting for a flyer. I like white space. I think white's still one of the most attractive colors that there is. You know, and somebody said earlier that gray is that kind of hopelessness, and I think hopelessness is something that you want to communicate. And I would use gray lettering. I'd use a dark gray lettering on a white background, and I would keep my colors to a minimum, because lots of color indicates lots of activity. If you want to talk about despair and loneliness, then you don't have it full of colors and images. That's a really good idea, Stephen. You could easily, she's not the first person in the space. And so you could easily see what other people are doing and how effective that is. And then you could create something from there. And, you know, how many of those people actually have tiny home villages is completely unimportant. The homeless veteran thing is very important. Can you see what we've got going on here? By the way, in this case, this right here works. This works. You know why? It's white lettering on a black space. But then this doesn't work. And this doesn't work. Yeah, the shadows became very distracting. So I can take a look at the designs. And what I notice when I'm at the design template, we'll go back out to the templates. What I notice when I'm at the design templates is that they're pretty simple and they're fairly basic. And there's very limited use of a lot of things that are supposed to just reach out and grab you. Okay. And what I mean by that is, let's open this one up. Let's open this one for a minute. Because again, this is a Pinterest pin. By the way, this is this topic that we're talking about right here with Juliet is a topic that I would think would be really, really good to have those images put on Pinterest. And so working from a Pinterest design would be kind of cool. And see, this is a really interesting design here. Can you see how this is constructed? I always like to take the designs apart, see how they're constructed, figure out what's been done that made them work. Okay. And you can see the pieces that are here. That's the other thing I do with templates is I like to take them apart, see how they were constructed, what they're put together with, and then see if I can use those same things to reproduce. And one of the things that you notice here is, and I'll open this one up. Do you see the opacity of that set at 37%? If I do this all the way, which is every one of the images we looked at a while ago, all of the backgrounds, all of the stuff, everything there was all set at full opacity. If you turn that down, you make it magic. Put that back at 37, which is what the other one's at. When you do that, all of a sudden you've changed the color, you've changed the look, you've made it work better for you. Okay, this is a very, very subtle use, and you'll see it here, a very subtle use of a shadow, not an overwhelming use of a shadow. And so I can take a look at as earlier Stephen said, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. But I do have to reset my head. And the templates really work well for me for doing that very thing. It reminds me again, hey, go back, use your shapes, take those shapes and make them work for you. Take the shapes and turn the opacity down so that they're not jumping out at you. And allow those, as somebody just said, allow those colors to recede into the background, and they work better. This is a great example right here of, and you can see that they've taken this image right here and they've reduced the opacity of it. Okay. Oh, whoops, I'm on the wrong one. Sorry. I'm trying to get on the background here. I may not be able to get to the background. I agree, Olga. And I don't know if you've been around long enough to hear my tagline. My tagline is simple, makes awesome easy. We live in a world that is so busy, and there's so much stuff going on, and there's so much clamoring for your attention, that the thing that's not clamoring, but is just there, making it easy, simple to read, easy to speed read, easy to get the message, makes it much more effective today than something that's screaming at you all the time. And, if I could find a picture and create the background from this one for that picture, then I could easily make that a homeless person. I could increase the blur on the homeless person so that they're not standing out. Because the fact is, and let's just take that apart for a moment. If I make the homeless veteran, if I make their image blurred as it is right here, and that's the reason why this one jumped out at me, then the problem is they're kind of out of focus anyhow. They're out of focus, they're out of mind, they're out of our attention. And this is a way for us to be able to communicate that and do it in a very subtle fashion. Okay, has this been helpful to anybody? I want to know this because, again, this was not easy for me to do. I want to know that this was helpful, and a good way for us to be able to take the images themselves. All right, to be able to take the images themselves and make them do what we want them to do. Because if you miss in this point, people can suffer because of it. All right. And I don't really, this one is too near and dear to my heart to have anybody miss. So I really appreciate what Juliet's doing. I want to be able to help, as I want to help any of you, but this one was hard. Okay. But doesn't mean we're going to shy away from it. It just means we have to understand. Okay. Okay, any other questions that because we spent more time here than I wanted to, but I think it was time well spent. I think it was valuable. The question about the blur was right here. So let me demonstrate this if I can, okay? If I turn the blur on that background image, you see what just happened to look at the mushrooms themselves. All right, I can do that. Xavier, probably the best way to do it, share it in the Facebook group. That's the easiest place for me to find it. And so if you can join the Facebook group, great. If not, the problem with sending it to support is, and that's the way I communicate, is through Facebook. So, okay, great question. Can I blur just part of the background? Let me do this. Yes, I can. And guess what I'm going to do that with, okay? I'm going to go up here. I'm going to get a graphic. I'm going to grab a shape. We did this on a previous webinar, so this is kind of fun. I'm going to take this shape right here, and I'm going to put it over that. I'm going to take this text, and I'm going to move it to the top. Okay, y'all with me? I'm going to take that text, and I'm going to bring it to the front. This image right here, I'm going to reduce the opacity on it to where it is nearly invisible. Then I'm going to add blur to it. And I'm going to increase the blur. And then I'm going to go back up here to the opacity. And can you see how it's starting to blur the the mushroom picture. All right. Now, one problem is that it needs to be exactly this. That gray color is starting to stand out. So I'm going to take this. I'm going to do that with it. How's that? Yes, we always have a replay of the webinar. All right. Any other questions? I need to wrap this up. I hope you understand. Thank you for joining us today. I appreciate your time, appreciate your attention, and we'll be back here next week, same time, same place, and we're going to do this all over again. All right. Thank you for joining me today. Have a great weekend.